Welcome to The Whiskey Chronicles, where Justin and his father cover topics from outdoor sports to whiskey. They will be joined from time to time with all kinds of guests, so we hope you enjoy. Here are your hosts, Justin and Kevin.
All right, guys, welcome to another edition of Whiskey Chronicles, sponsored by Team Whiskey. Super stoked today to have our guest today. He is a badass American mountaineer, many first ascents and descents under his belt. The creator of the Venture Film Festival. He is host of the Tahoe Today Show and also the official, unofficial spokesperson for the Tahoe Tribe.
I like it. Thanks.
We got to cheers to that one because
that. There you go.
There's a little inside joke on that one.
All right.
So what
about the tribe or about the cheers?
About the tribe, the
About the
Tahoe
tribe.
tribe. But yeah, today you're gonna be sipping on a little bit of Angel's Envy Rye. This is finished in Caribbean rum casks. What do you think about the flavor?
That's very good. Sweet.
It's got a nice little.
For 100 proof whiskey,
I'm never good at that. You know, it has an oaky taste. I'm like, no, it tastes like whiskey, but that's good. It tastes a little sweeter.
Yeah, it's got a nice sweet finish to it.
Just know what I like.
So let's jump in. One of the main things we want to ask you about is, did you grow up in a more of a hunting and outdoors family, or was that something you came on to later in life?
No, I definitely grew up, not so much a hunting family, but a hunting community. I got into it at a real young age. My grandpa would take me squirrel hunting when I was, real young, just learning how to, be safe with the gun and operate a .22. We were shooting them with .22s and, got out with my grandpa, which was great. And then probably into high school, I got real into hunting, just obsessed with hunting. I grew up in the Maryland, Virginia area. Kind of, it's interesting, like where I grew up. I'm 58 years old now. Where I grew up was very rural. A lot of cornfields and soybean fields. So we had a huge white-tailed deer population there. That was great for hunting, and I could go almost straight from the house and get out. And I go home now, and it's really interesting to see the development, the sprawl that's gone out there. And a lot of the areas that we grew up hunting now are, communities.
Yeah, Walmart or Costco or something like that.
Yeah, all of it. Just track homes.
But the deer are still there.
The deer are still there. They're getting hit by cars every single day. But
that's why the insurance lobby they have so many deer tags back there. Is
yeah,
because
that's exactly right. And when I grew up, it was the way they would run the season was I don't know how it is here as much. They would have bow season first, and I'd go bow hunting. Then it would go to black powder season, and I had a Hawken 50 caliber black powder rifle. We'd go shoot deer with that, and then it would go to shotgun. You could use slugs. And then it went to rifle season, and I would participate in all of them.
Yeah, in Ohio it was archery, and then 1 week of shotgun slug.
Okay,
and
so very similar.
Yeah, and here's different. It starts out with archery, then it goes into rifle, and then you finish up with muzzle loader.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
I like the concept. You're hunting with the bow. You're not really alerting the deer so much and training them up to be too afraid of people in the woods or movement in the woods, and then the black powder, it's basically one shot.
Yep.
Whereas
one
you get a rifle, you might get, three shots.
Well, and then the other thing of it is getting close.
Yes.
And so getting close, walking through the eastern woods with deciduous trees, it's hard to get close stalking with a bow. So, you're kind of left with hunting from a tree.
And I had some good ones like that, stalking and getting.
Yeah.
It's an amazing art and skill that's just takes years and years of being in the woods. I think one of the greatest things of hunting, I still tell people. I remember a story with my grandpa one time, being down along a river and talking about someone fishing. I didn't do a whole lot of fishing growing up. And my grandpa made the point. He said, "You see that man down there fishing?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "You think he's probably been there all day long?" I said, "Yeah, it looks like it." He said, "You think that guy would just go stand with his hands on his hip all day long by that river and just look at it and listen to the birds and the river and see the animals that walk by
without a pole?"
Without a pole. And he said that's what we're doing. You got that rifle in your hand. You don't have to kill something every time you go out. It's called hunting, not killing, right?
Yeah.
And it was a really good lesson. I apply it to the mountains to this day.
And that's what we tell people with our hunter mentorship.
It gives me
program.
goosebumps saying that. Like it's an amazing point.
Yeah, with our hunter mentorship program, we tell people if you don't enjoy being out in the woods for long periods of time and without getting to kill and expecting just to be out there just for the enjoyment of it, then hunting's probably not the best, because you're not going to be successful most of the time, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, and a big thing is getting people comfortable being in the forest.
Yeah.
A lot of people and moving through the forest the right way. They move through the forest.
Not being scared of the forest.
It's
true.
At night, 3:00 in the morning, when I'm walking to a tree stand and I'm walking through predators out, you know, I know they're out and about. I got pictures of them. I know they're there. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, you have to be alive, and to say that, you know, that it's not a little bit of, you know, what do you call it? I wouldn't say fear, but, you know, excitement. That's kind of like why you do it, right?
I think some of the coolest animal interactions and sightings and behavior that I ever saw and learned from was bow hunting. You know, sitting in a tree stand, and I can remember being in a tree stand one time all camoed up deer hunting for whitetail in Virginia, and it was in the fall, and all these ravens, and ravens are smart, right? I remember as a kid with a BB gun, it's hard as hell to get a raven, you know, as a kid just with your pellet gun.
They're very social.
And I remember and they just hundreds of them came in the trees and they were landing, and I just was staying still and thinking, man, this is money. If a deer comes through now, like, he sees those ravens, he knows there's nothing around here. And I sat there for the longest time just listening to them talk back and forth and watch a fox walk through. All the things you see above and beyond the actual, you know, killing of an animal is incredible.
And you don't get to see those things unless you're hunting.
Right. Yeah. Like I said, you're not going to stand there with your hands on your hip in a tree stand.
Yeah. You know, and that's really kind of, you know, the thing that we try to promote the most is, like, you know, you have to be good with just being out there. If you're not good with just being out there, then, you know, it's probably not for you. You know, maybe bird hunting, something with a dog, you know, something that you're going to, you know, possibly get shots at every day that you go out, you know. But, you know, well, look at that one right there.
Yeah, so Todd supplied us.
That's a good one.
Todd supplied us a couple pictures, and for the audio, we'll go ahead and describe what they are. But on the YouTube, we will be putting the pictures up right when we're talking about the segments. But this one right here is a black and white photo.
I know, it looks old as shit, doesn't it? It's
black and white.
Look at that bed and the carpet and everything.
It's Todd. He's sitting in an old rocking chair, asleep, with what do you got? I
got a 6-shooter across my waist.
You got the 6-shooter across the waist.
Yeah, some jeans and some white socks and black shoes.
And how old were you right here in this picture?
You know, I'm trying to. I bet I was about 5 years old there. You know, I was that kid that just, you know, wanted toy guns and wanted to shoot guns.
That's all we had.
Yeah, man, and wanted to wrestle and fight and just mix it. I always was fascinated with guns and grew up, you know, from the very beginning, just learning how to be around guns as a kid.
Oh, yeah.
You know, the guns were secured and put away, and how to handle a gun and what to do and the responsibility of it, cleaning a gun, all that stuff.
Yeah. How to take care of it properly. It's not just
I was always I'm not a real mechanical person. I'm not the guy that's fixing everything around the house, and I'm just not working on my car. I'm not that guy. But I was always from the very beginning fascinated with firearms, just the machinery of it, and how you don't force anything back together. You know, at first I was trying to muscle at things. It's like no. A gun is just this beautiful piece of machinery that intricate and ties together.
It's milled too.
Yeah, it's really cool.
The tolerances on everything nowadays are so tight.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, taking care of them, like you said, gun safety, you know, growing up with it, was never, like, it was always there. So like, there was never an issue about a gun.
No, it's totally different today, or it feels different looking at the news and the media. I mean, I run into folks like you, and we start talking, Justin and I, in the gym, and it's refreshing to see that there's people that still really respect the Second Amendment.
I like having those little pistol talks that we talk about.
Yeah, man. I do too.
Yeah, Justin's the guy that he's the tech guy. You know,
I believe it. I can see it today, just setting all this up. This is great.
But he does everything, and he's been that way ever since he's a little kid.
Yeah.
So you know, he's been that guy that's always been able to put stuff together. Where me, I'm more simplified. You know, he wants to go through the same hole at 300 yards with his rifle. I want to be able to hit a deer at 100 yards with my rifle.
Isn't that what's great though about like people? Everybody's got this unique strength, and I think part of that coming up is trying to figure out, like, where are my strengths? So let me focus on my strengths, and and get really good at something. You know, someone told me early on, they were like, don't focus on those weaknesses, man. Like, then all you're going to have is really strong weaknesses, you know, as you delegate that maybe in some other area. Like, you guys make a good team, it sounds like, in just that sense alone.
Yeah, I think so. He's more like his mom. I mean, but he's the mechanical part. He's gotten, like, my dad was really mechanical. My wife's father was a machinist, so he was very mechanical. Used to make his own stuff, and
but it started off with building different toys and stuff. Now it's guns and bows and cars.
Yeah, that's great. I always admire that skill, being able to work on things. And you know, I'm always that guy. Like, I remember as a kid, like, I'd have a friend, you know, knew how to fix a car or whatever, clutch go out or something. And it'd be like, you just lean over and you're handing them the tools. And you just, oh, man, how do you know how to do that? That's amazing. And kind of encouraging them along to, like, all right, let's get this project to fruition.
Yeah, here we go.
All right, so we pulled up another picture. This is Todd when he was how old?
Man,
but it looked like you went directly to the Army surplus store.
That's exactly where all
that
those
was the only
clothes came from.
that was the only camo you could get.
That's exactly right. Yeah,
you went to the Army surplus store and you got BDUs, and that was your camo.
That was
classic
exactly
woodland
right.
pattern.
Isn't that a good point, though, huh?
That was the only camo pattern.
It wasn't rain. You didn't have a rain jacket that was camo. You didn't have. It was.
There was.
If you were wearing camo, then it was surplus store.
Yeah,
that's true.
And then really, the only people that were actually wearing a lot of camo were the deer hunters. Squirrel hunters, rabbit hunter wasn't necessarily so. I mean, it didn't really need it. A lot of people were wearing Carhartts and Browns. And
I walk into a car. What's the store I'm trying to say? What's the one?
Shields or Cabela's.
Cabela's. I'm sorry. Yeah, I walk into one of those now, and I'm just fascinated with how much technical clothing. It's breathable. It pushes the keeps the water out, lets the moisture out.
Yeah, and then for hunting back east. Like on my farm, there's greenbrier, blackberries all over the place. So during gun season, if you want to kick them out of there, and the deer everywhere know after the first day of rifle season or firearm season, they know. Yeah. They know that the guys with the fire sticks are back.
Yeah.
And you lay down during the day and you don't move.
Yep.
And the only way you can do is get them out. And but the only way you can get through that stuff is with like Carhartt.
Yeah. This picture was taken. I had some friends that had their dad worked at Dartmouth University, and there was a land grant up there right on the border with New Hampshire, Maine, and Canada. It's far way the hell up north. And we'd go up there in November. It was cold. And oftentimes there was snow. And we bought snow camo from the surplus store, that white and black kind of.
Yeah.
And it was cotton. And it was really just something you put over your regular other cotton. And you're in the snow. It'd be snow. And it was just be soaking wet, moving around the snow. But it was amazing. That snow camo, I think, is even more camo than the green, brown, black stuff that we're looking at there in that picture.
Yeah. And a lot of times they were all white.
Yep. And that worked too. I mean, that was like World War II, right? That was the Finnish and the Germans.
It depends
up there.
on what you got. I remember I had a pair of Swiss wool pants.
Those green ones, those things are the best.
But they're like 8 pounds.
They're super heavy.
Yeah, they're like 9 pounds, and like they took up like needed a 3,000 cubic inch space just for themselves.
I had the same pair. That was a great. I had a friend who skied in Tahoe in those things up until probably 10 years
slept
ago.
outside, drunk
you could get them wet
in West Virginia, and snow in them.
Once they got wet and it got cold, everything just froze on the outside like a glazed donut.
Yeah,
and it held the heat inside.
Yeah.
That wool was amazing. That's what they used.
Yeah. Those were good, and they were cheap too.
Yeah.
They were cheap.
You can still get them, I'll bet you.
So what rifle? Do you remember what rifle this is right here?
It's funny. I'm looking at that's that classic Remington. I know it's the classic Remington.
700.
700. So one exactly 700 Remington. Some cheap ass scope on it. All you needed,
You had a scope back then.
Yeah, exactly.
We were always iron sight.
Yep, we had iron sights for a while. That was a big deal having a scope then.
Yeah. Yeah, well, back then, the slugs that we would shoot, they were really good to 50, 75 yards. I mean, if you could hit a pie plate at 50 yards.
Well, it was a rifle. I mean, a rifle.
Yeah, a rifle was different.
Yeah, the slug. Yeah, slugs weren't very.
Yeah,
you could hear
there was no reason for us to have a scope.
You could hear that slug hit, though.
Yeah.
There were times you could actually hear it hit the deer.
And I've seen them take a slug from 40 yards away and take off running.
Damn.
Like, just run. And like, how do they do that?
It's amazing, isn't it?
Because I think you and I, we'd just be done.
I like to think I'd keep running or shoot back.
Yeah, shoot back first would be
Shoot
the
back
idea.
maybe be the first thing.
Well, that's funny. We hosted these guys came by that do these hero bike builds for these wounded warriors, and they stopped by. They just built a bike for a guy. This was 2 summers ago, and the guy had both his legs blown off, so they built him and part of his hand. So they had to
built him
a trike so that he could be able to ride it, And we met him at an event, and it was one of those things where a guy's like, "Hey man, I'm gonna come by in Tahoe and I'll look you up." Okay, sure. That it usually never happens, right? But no, these guys are ex-military guys. They call me and they're like, "Hey, can we come by?"
Great.
So I came by and we were talking about it. I was like, and the guy, he's like, "Man, I can't kill a deer," but they're like, "Yeah, but you've killed a lot of people."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Yeah, I guess hunting people would be easier." He goes, "Until they start shooting back."
Yeah, exactly. You hear that from a lot of anti-hunting people. Well, why don't you, if the deer shot back, it's like, well, you have to get out there and do it and see what an art it really is. And I'm fascinated these days to see how popular bow hunting and just hunting in general to get the organic meat. People, that seems to now make it so popular. When we were doing it was the sport of hunting. I mean, that's all I ate
now
was deer meat.
There is a definite push and a definite drive of some people that are wanting to get that organic protein source that they know exactly where it came from.
And bow hunting is in a renaissance right now. I mean, people are getting exposed to it, and it's also the same thing with the skis have gotten better.
All of the technology.
I've
not shot a bow I don't think I've shot a bow since I've lived in Tahoe, and I just can't imagine.
Man, you got to
I
start
remember
getting
that
back
compound
into
bow.
it.
Maybe it was 60 pounds. I might be making that up 70 pounds. No,
Yeah,
is that
60, 70 pounds?
It was a bitch to pull. I was strong as hell then, and it was hard.
Oh yeah,
back
yeah,
and lock it.
Yeah.
And I always was.
And they were slow.
Yep.
And they were slow.
And I, for whatever reason, didn't ever want to use the trigger. I always wanted to have my fingers, and I pulled it to the corner of my lip and had it all dialed in as to what worked, and had a target in my backyard and would move all around and shoot distances. But seeing what you guys did at Homewood and seeing some of those pictures and where things have gone and seeing pictures of those bows and
yeah, the cams now are so much more efficient. Before they were like little tiny 2-3 inch wheels. Now they're 5, 6 different offsets and shapes to them to get like more efficiency out of it.
And you can buy a bow that you can get the mod that goes onto the cam to adjust to whatever weight you want and whatever draw weight. Before, you bought a 28-inch bow at 60 pounds. You went to go get rid of it to get a new bow. You had to find somebody that had to draw 28 inches and can pull 60 pounds. So
now it's all adjustable.
No kidding. So you take and again, like I haven't shot one for so long, but you can adjust a modern bow now to 40
and then
pounds,
once you get it
pounds.
back, it's 80+% let off, so it's
85 usually.
85.
Wow.
85%. Matthews, they have a switch weight technology where you can actually change this little cam mod that will allow you to change your draw length and the weight of the bow. Most other companies have that available for your draw length. I know Hoyt, they have like a window like cam 1, cam 2, and cam 3 where you'll be able to switch a little bit of the distance of your draw length.
That's cool. And I guess
it's all modified now.
And that's why so many women are
the trigger.
Yeah, and everybody
Release.
And
release.
We did have one guy, an older guy that was with Annihilator Broadheads at our event, and he shoots compound with his fingers. Which is pretty amazing.
Old schooler.
So so back then, were you into the mountaineering at that point?
No, at that point I was not.
So what age did you all of a sudden say, "Hey man, I really love going to these places"?
So Todd, he's done a lot of first descents, right?
Yeah, a lot. Yeah, climbing mountains that had previously been unclimbed.
Go through over a couple of those.
Well, God, man, I've been all over climbing. That's like, I
I
took that same passion from hunting, and I just got turned on to. So I grew up as a kid, probably similar to a lot of people that are into hunting. I grew up as a kid, being frustrated, learning history of the pioneers and the frontier when it was getting discovered in America. I'd read about Lewis and Clark and be like, damn, I was born 200 years too late. Man, that would have been me. I was the kid with the BB gun. come home from school and get got the responsibility from my dad. Got to be responsible with the BB gun, and I just go out in the woods and shoot Tweety birds and irresponsible. But being a kid, I wanted to be back in that era where they were discovering and crossing over the next hill just to see something that no other European, no other American, no other white guy had ever seen before. Like that just inspired me. So when I got into climbing. I really like the adventure. I like the, kind of controlling that fear of heights and falling and all the things that went with climbing. But when I realized that you could go to places around the world and climb mountains that had not been climbed yet, that sparked that Lewis and Clark part of what I'd always felt like I was missing. To this day, I'm frustrated. Like, God damn, I wish that would have been a terrible. Yeah, man, like that. But the climbing met that for me. So I very quickly was like, I had to learn the different, disciplines of climbing, climbing with the rope, free climbing, using your hands and feet to ascend up a rock, and then putting protection in case you fall to catch you, and then aid climbing, using points of aid to pull on to get up, and then ice climbing and dealing with snow and avalanches and crevasses and crevasse rescue. So I just took off and just started. I went to the bugaboos. I started going to Yosemite and climbing on El Capitan and some of these big, massive walls that we have here in California and Yosemite, and learning those skills. And then immediately started going up to Canada, the bugaboos of British Columbia, found some giant, walls, granite walls that were unclimbed there, started climbing there very quickly, then started going over to down to South America, to the Andes, to Peru, climbing big walls, on to Pakistan, Tibet, China. And then even the beaches in Thailand and southern Thailand was like sport climbing, just all of it. But I was just, to this day, I can't figure out exactly what it is, but that doing the first one of it, being the first, I just love it. I climb harder. I'm more engaged. I probably have some attention deficit issues growing up that got me in trouble, and to this day, But that, like you take someone who has that kind of challenge, whatever, and you find that what clicks with them, and that's what's clicked with me. I mean, to this day, like here in Tahoe, I've probably put up close to 200 routes just around Tahoe. And some of them most of them are easy, moderate climbs that people can go enjoy with their kids, their family. That's been my latest push.
But nobody's done them yet, so you just...
it's something real interesting. Like, trying to figure out, same thing with hunting in a way. Like, where's that deer going to be today? Where's the feed? Where's he eating? Where's he bedding down? Where do I need to be? Looking at a mountain and going, what's the weakness in this mountain for me to get to the top and get to that summit and do it? What's it going to take? How much food? How much water? How many days do I need? What kind of gear do I need to bring?
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because we always drive past mountains and look and like, oh yeah, I see my line.
Ski line.
Yeah.
You're talking totally.
And then I also look, it's like, oh, I bet there's pocket animals up there. Like I start to identify just from looking as you're driving down the road, and you see it. But yeah, it's hard. I think if you're a skier, I haven't done rock climbing in a long time, but you always kind of like, it's a visual thing, right? You have to see it first before you can do it.
And I think those skills that you learn in hunting, having a mentor, someone to bring you up, someone to teach you, then what you learn and observe and experience on your own of being, downwind from an animal, where, like I just mentioned, like, where's he bedding down? Where are they feeding? Where are they moving? What's going on? What's it's hot. Maybe they're bed down at this time. Oh, it's cold. They're moving. They're looking. They're scrounging.
What are they eating at this time of the year?
Exactly. It's the same skills you use in the mountain. Like, what's the for avalanches? What's the snow doing right now? Is it strengthening? Is it weakening? Is it avalanche danger increasing? Or what's the rock doing? Because mountains, as the day heats up, giant rock fall come down in these the Karakoram, the Himalaya, these massive ranges, the Sierra Nevadas. I was just down on Mount Whitney, climbing the East Buttress 2 days ago, and there was rock fall in this one chute all day long, and it was from heating. But I think those observations, paying attention, having that spatial awareness, that situational awareness, is something that applies to all aspects of life. When you go out, with my daughter who's 9 years old, I'm teaching her that. When she was young, I took notice that the two big issues for children, dangerous issues, was drowning and automobiles.
Yeah.
And I'd get her in the car and show her where the rear view mirror was, and go back and stoop down behind the car and say, look, when a car's backing out, they can't see you. Do you understand that? looking both ways is the most obvious way when you're crossing the street.
Yeah.
That's taught. But I wanted her to see, like, we're in parking lots, what was going on around the water, teaching her, made sure she could swim. I think that stuff transcends into all parts of our lives and just makes us more aware. I feel like we're in a period right now with so much information, with YouTube and internet,
all the tech
stuff, that people are getting away from what is so basic and so fundamental and such an
primitive kind of
essence
primal
of what people are attaching to, again, reattaching to with hunting.
Yeah, and too, I think it's the, these are like the wilderness, these are the ancient things that are in us.
Yes.
Tracking animals. When you're looking, like you said, we become immune, we don't see. And when we take people out and mentor them and show them, like, well, look, you can see how this is squared off at the top. A deer's been feeding here.
Yep.
And show them different things that they've never seen, or rubs where they rub on where the bucks rub, this things that probably walked by. Who knows, they may have walked by.
And isn't that great when you show them that, and then you're walking through with them and you don't notice something, and they say, hey, is this one right here? This looks like a scrape on a tree. Oh yeah, good job, I didn't see that.
Yeah.
We do the same thing because I guide these trips to down south to Antarctica and up to the Arctic and islands, Svalbard. And I tell the clients that, these people haven't been to these regions. I'm like, you see something, say something. Let me know. If you see a crack or you see something in the snow, let's all of our eyes.
We've had a lot of people say, like, after we've taken them walking through the woods, showing them different sign and how to look for tracks and that kind of thing. Next time we see them, they're like, man, I walk through the woods so much differently now. Yeah. Like, I see a bunch of stuff that I would just walk past and never even know was there. And that's kind of a big thing about it.
Yeah. And, I think opening people's eyes to that, and then it becomes a natural thing. I mean, to me, I've had like every animal in the Ohio woods as a pet as a kid, because it was like, that's what we did. Like, and people, we cut grass too, but and make money and shoveled snow, but then we also trapped animals and skinned them and sold the pelts. So that was so like,
awesome. I didn't realize all that about you guys until you started Team Whiskey. It's really cool when you guys came on the show. I'd seen both you guys around town, say hi,
Yeah.
And
familiar
maybe,
face,
familiar face kind of thing. That's classic in a mountain town. But then when I started hearing more about this, I love hearing the stories and of that and realizing that's someone's background.
Yeah,
everybody's got a story, man. I love it.
Yeah. Now, speaking of stories, we're trying to figure out, what are you going hunting for here that you gotta?
So let me explain the picture for all y'all that aren't able to see it. We got Todd here. He's skiing down a pretty steep pitch right here with a full backpack, and looks like some type of rifle sticking out of the back.
It's a Mauser.
30-06,
yeah, classic European. That's like the Remington 700 in Europe.
And I see no tracks of any.
And you see the ocean below.
Miles. Yeah, you see the
ocean. I think you got to pay attention. The ocean's below too. Like,
okay,
how many places in the
ocean.
world can you ski down to the ocean, sea level?
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
So why do you have to have a rifle there?
Well, that's a photo that was taken up in Svalbard, where I work for a company called Ice Axe Expeditions, guiding ski expeditions off a sailboat. I mean, you want to talk about like dream job. Like, if I had $1 million, what would you spend the money? I'd go up there and go
So
skiing.
you guys would sail, look at the lines from the water, and then once you pick out your line, you head up on and up there. And
this island in Svalbard is the most, the town Longyearbyen that we fly into is the most northern civilization in the world, as I understand. And it's a sovereignty nation, so a bunch of different nations have all agreed to not have nuclear there and all these different things. But Norway manages this area. So we fly clients up there and load up on a sailboat and then sail into these fjords to go skiing, hike up the mountain, ski back down. But what a lot of people have done in Svalbard, we're kind of one of the first companies to start doing these ski expeditions to this area, about 450 miles south of the North Pole. It's that far north. Really deep in the Arctic. But what most people have gone, if anyone has been to Svalbard, they typically go there to observe the polar bears. There's 3,000 polar bears on this island. This is like, if you want to see polar bears, you can be on a boat in deep water, and the water's so deep, these fjords, you can get right up. I mean, you can get like 10 feet from the land and be checking out a polar bear.
So it's like Kodiak Island, but for polar bears.
Yes. Yeah. So by law, as a guide, you have to. It's great too, because I have some of these guides that come from other places in the world, Europe, and places that don't have a Second Amendment like we do here in the United States of America. and they're not familiar with guns. It's awkward for them. But by law, they have to carry a fucking gun because of the polar bear. So the protocols are like when we're out skiing. There's 3,000, so you're going to see them.
Yeah.
We first thing you try to do if you saw a polar bear and you're out with clients is get back to the boat. Because this is an endangered animal.
Yeah.
It's like if you were to have to shoot one, there's an investigation just like a murder up there.
Oh, yeah.
Right,
they're flying in, they're separating people, they're going to, interview witnesses. So the first protocol for safety is to get back to the boat. Second one is we have these flare guns, and they're like the ones you'd see like on Gilligan's Island. I mean, it's just like, like you crack it open, put this flashbang in it. And the key is to shoot that. You want to make sure you shoot that flare and it lands in front of the bear, because if you shoot it over him and it blows up behind him, he's going to come running at you, right?
That's not,
yeah,
they didn't work out the fail safe on
yeah,
that one.
exactly. Yeah, it's like you better know your distance on the flare gun, and then of course the third is this rifle that we take. It's a old Mauser, 30-06 Mauser. We just upgraded the rifles, and goddamn, I got to remember what that caliber is that we got. It was a super heavy-duty caliber, stainless steel, because you're on the ocean. These things want to rust. And,
right.
I mean, I showed up there, and these are mountain people. They're not gun people. I show up, and this thing's rusty. So now when I go up there, I bring gun oil and clean it. I go up there, and I clean it, and I fire it every time.
Yeah.
It's hard getting ammunition into Norway and these places, and, So they want to minimize like shooting, but I always go and fire the weapon, clean it, and make sure that just zero. Make sure that I'm.
That's
be
good.
Of course.
I mean, if your life is depending on it.
Yes, of course. So it's like an amazing job to be doing that, and it's just so fucking cool to be skiing and living on a boat and showing people this place that I've done probably 20 plus trips into this deep part of the Arctic. And skiing with a rifle, man, it's like my dream job, Like Lewis and Clark didn't get to do that.
No, my question would be, if those guys don't know how to handle a rifle, do you get to let them shoot to know, like, they know how to shoot?
I do. I've taken a few of them out and just been like, take the classic, we're on a boat, like, it's minimal stuff, but take a piece of cardboard from the bottom of the beer case, draw a little circle, get out there, and I get them just to brace it.
Just like any deer camp.
Yep, and exactly, it's pretty much a deer camp, and just make sure they're just familiar with it and understand the safety and the bolt action, and because it's
because your life could depend on them being able to because how it is. Different angles are create
of course
different opportunities,
and that's another situation with the clients, and that's a really good one going back to growing up and hunting. You get in these vast areas there where you're looking, you might have a mile visibility across the snow where it feels like you can look for a mile.
There's no civilizations anywhere close.
There's definitely not that, but the context I was trying to say was like, look in that distance,
right,
and you look like you can see a mile, and you can just relax like there's no bear. But as a hunter, those little dips in the land, and that's what a polar bear is going to do. They're some of the greatest hunters on the planet. Like they have no predators. They're going to be in that little dip in the land and putting their nose up and smelling you and working closer and a little closer. And then all of a sudden, you're looking at a mile, all of a sudden one comes out of there and he's, maybe 30 meters away from you. That's what I try to instill in the clients of like, we have to always be looking. And what we have up there is the traditional classic reindeer, white giant caribou, but they're I don't know the exact name, but they're like the traditional Santa Claus reindeer that are up there because they're close to the North Pole, right? That's how it all came about. But we'll see those. They're the exact same color basically as a polar bear. Longer legs, but when they're in the snow, it's hard to tell from a distance. And we'll get out there with a client. I'll have our guide ratio is 1 guide to 4 clients, and often in the beginning of the trips we'll have 2 guides and then the 4 clients. So there'll be 10 of us total moving on a skin track, with our skis moving up a mountain or across a glacier. And I'll see
everybody in a straight line.
Yep. So you don't fall in a crevasse if you're on a glacier. That
you guys tethered?
We will be. Yeah, we'll rope up if we're on a glacier. I have horrible fall into a glacier story if you're interested in that one. But I'll see these reindeer. I'll see one of them, even better still, off in a distance, and I'll just keep an eye on it. I'm just waiting with the clients, and they're just cruising and talking, and we're walking closer to it, and they're just oblivious to it. And then finally, I've learned to do this. I'll say, oh, hey, look, polar bear, you guys, there's a polar, and they'll see it because it's still far enough away you can't see the antlers. It's distance thing. And then they all panic, and typically I'll give the flare gun for weight distribution in my pack, give the flare gun to one of the clients, and I'll carry the rifle, and I have the rescue sled and medical kit just to kind of get my pack weight down.
Right.
I'm like, okay, hey, get the flare gun out. You guys get behind me. And people are just panicked, and they're flustered, and they're asking questions, and they just get all crazy, and I'm getting the guy the flare gun's been buried deep in his pack underneath his down jacket, and his lunch, and his fucking water bottle. And I run through this whole drill that feels very real life at the time because they think it's a polar bear. And then go, all right, you guys, that's just a caribou, and I'm the big joker, so it's part of that. But I'm like, that was a good drill though. You guys see,
practice.
Yeah, don't put that flare gun in the bottom of your pack. We have to be aware. You guys didn't even see this thing. I had to finally point it out to you, and it's a good lesson. It's another one of those mentoring type lessons.
Well, that was one of the things that we're going to ask you was, what was one? You mentioned something about falling in a crevasse. So, like, we were going to ask, like, what was the hardest trip that you've done that, physically, emotionally, and I would imagine.
Yeah, that was
mentally. They could be multiple.
Yeah. Falling in a crevasse sounds like all of the above.
Well, yeah, it's it didn't take much effort. There's other efforts and suffering of just not giving up, just persevering. Just like, I'm not quitting, keep going. I'm not complying. I have this whole philosophy of never complain, never. I have a whole philosophy on not complaining. We can talk about it, but but with the
one thing that will kill a trip is somebody whining.
God damn.
That's what we had a thing at the farm. There's rule number 1: no whining.
No complaining.
Rule number 2: look at rule number 1.
Yeah.
Everything else is good.
It's so critical because we've all done something that's hard. Whatever it is, it's hard. And if you complain the whole way through it, you get to the end and you find that success in the end. And you look back and you go, God damn, I wish I hadn't complained all the time. I look like such a little bitch now for just complaining the whole time. Yeah. But I learned along the way because I go with like some of the most badass athletes in the world. I'm not that guy, but I get to go with these guys, and I'm realizing this formula of like, if when it's cold and it sucks and you're freezing and you've got blisters on your feet, shut up and don't say a word. Suck it up. Because when it's over and you pull that ski boot off and the blood comes out and you got this blister and everybody else was like, man, are you cold? I'm like, I'm fine. You're freezing your ass off. Don't say a fucking word, because in the end, when you finish and you're done, success or not, and you didn't complain, people go, God damn, that guy's fucking tough, man.
And then you laugh about it.
And then you get invited back on another trip. It is the key to just, we all want to complain, but it doesn't serve a purpose. It doesn't, it's one thing to say, hey, you guys, my bone's sticking out of my tip fib sticking out of my skin. I have a compound fracture. That's not complaining. That's communicating. But if you're just going, hey, my legs hurt, My calf.
My calf.
Oh,
yeah.
I think everybody's been in that situation where they've been around people that are whining.
Yeah.
And like I said, it never makes it any better. It just always makes it worse.
And when you learn to not do, or learn when you get to that point, like I can remember being really scared climbing and being run out in climbing is when you put a piece of protection to catch a fall. And you get way out from that piece of protection. You keep climbing. There's no place to put a piece of protection. And you're looking at a really long, scary, possibly dangerous fall. And being up there and going, oh, God, watch me. Oh, man, I don't know what to do. It's hard. I can't. And I remember bitching. And then getting through it and being like, God damn it. I wish you know what? Next time when I get in that, and the next time I was in that position, I was like, at least if I fall and die, I don't go out just whining and bitching about it. They'll be like, man, he was fucking tough right up there. He was giving it his all. He didn't give a
say
squeak.
One thing about it.
Not a word.
Well, it was funny because I remember seeing an old Western that you mentioned that, and it was these cowboys traveling with these Indians, and an Indian fell off the cliff, and they said he didn't make a noise, and they're like, yeah, he didn't want to blow our cover.
I love it. Perfect. That's it.
The old Westerns, man. We need to bring some of those philosophies, some of that John Wayne stuff back, don't we?
Yeah, but that crevasse fall. So for those that are listening that don't understand what a crevasse is, you have these glaciers in these areas, these Arctic and Antarctic areas, glaciers, snow that's refroze and melted and refroze, turn into these glaciers. And within the glaciers, if you think of like a Snickers bar, as you bend it, cracks form in it. And as that glacier moves downhill, all glaciers move downhill, they form these crevasses that can be massive, So you rope up, you wear a harness, and you do this stuff. And sometimes you can walk around the glaciers without a rope and be, safe. And we were doing just that. We were climbing this 1,000-meter peak. And for the Americans at home, that's about 3,000 feet. It's fun as a guide. You talk in meters. Americans, like we just said, oh, fuck the metric system.
A little more than a yard.
Too many zeros, But we were cruising up this peak, and we got to a place where I could see that there was more obvious crevasses. But what happens is the snow blows around, and it creates these snow bridges that can be very thin that covers the gap between the ice, and that's a crevasse. But the snow bridge is what's really elusive because you can't see it. And I had clients on the first day of a trip up here in Svalbard, and had gotten to the top of this one part, and we had a little bit of like a bench that we were in. And I was like, hey, I think we're going to rope up here. We all had harnesses on. That's what you need to tie into around your waist, and leg loops for your legs to tie into a rope. I was like, I think we're gonna tie in here. And this kid was coming up with his skis, on his back with crampons on, coming up this icy slope. And the water was below us, and it was beautiful and just glassy. And the sailboat was down below us. And I was like, I got to get a picture. And I didn't just walk out. I was real cautious, like where I went. I looked, and I did, because a lot of times you'll get like a little bit of a slump in the snow, where the snow bridge is formed, and as it heats up, it sags a little bit. And you can detect that, oftentimes. And I looked, and I couldn't see that. And in fact, the line I wanted to walk, just about 10 feet away from where I was all it was, even had old reindeer tracks in it. And I was like, all right, because it's amazing how they know where to walk. It's really cool. And I walked out, but as I rotated around to get around and turn around to take this photo, it's like a trap door. I mean, just the snow bridge collapsed, and I started falling. And then I was still falling, and I know what a long fall feels like from climbing. Like sometimes you're like, "Oh shit, the rope's not going to catch," and then and I was still falling, and I literally had the thought, "This is how I die." It's a peaceful thought, but at the time, I just was falling way too long to survive. I had that thought. I got a beautiful family, a young daughter at home, a beautiful wife. I got this great life.
So this was recent.
This was 4 years ago.
Okay.
And it definitely created some short-term PTSD type issues from it, for sure.
Hell yeah.
And as I'm, going through that, all of a sudden I hit right on my backpack, and I had this huge backpack, remember, with a rifle on it, all this stuff. And as I landed, then all this snow started landing on my face. I'm thinking, oh shit, now I'm going to suffocate. and as it all kind of settled, I'm down in this pitch black hole that hasn't seen sunlight since, fucking dinosaurs. I don't know. Like it is
maybe
cold.
never.
Was it had like the blue ice that you see?
Yes,
in
blue
there?
ice. I couldn't see anything at first, but slowly there was a hole above me where I'd punched through.
How far of a fall are we talking about here?
It ended up being, we know from the rope, it ended up being 50, 60 feet. It seems unsurvivable. What I suspect is some other snow bridges had formed across it, down it. I suspect I went through a couple snow bridges. I wasn't injured. I'd lost one ski, and I'm down in this hole. And
no serious injury at all, huh?
No, it was amazing. It was astounding.
Did you look for your ski?
Well, I'm first I had to get the hell out of there. I'm down in this hole, and I got the other guy, so I get on the radio, and I start calling to this other guy, Andrew McLean, trying to get a hold of him. And because I'm deep in there, it's a line of sight radio. It wasn't working. I could hear the client above just screaming, going, "Oh my God!" He just, it's like a trap door. I mean, you stand there, and 1 second you're not, and there's just a hole where you were. And I was so deep. But eventually, Andrew got to me, threw me down a rope. I started climbing out. I'd gotten super hypothermic. I made the mistake at the time. I sent my pack up first because you don't want to climb out with your pack. It's just too awkward and too heavy to go up a rope. I sent my pack up, and I should have just put all my clothes on. It's a really good lesson for anyone. You have an injury when it's cold out. You want to just layer that person up with as much clothing as you can, even if it's taking off yourself.
Yeah, they're starting to go into shock just from the whole experience.
And so I made that mistake, and I did eventually start ascending up this rope, and I could look down and see that my ski was down below me, and I was like, shit. I knew there were extra pairs of skis on the boat that I could use, and I was like, fuck it, I'll just leave that thing. I want out of here. And then I was like, no, this is day one, man. I got to come out of this whole joking. I got to come out of it with all my equipment.
No whining.
No whining.
Yeah, no whining, man. And these are clients. These clients haven't even skied downhill yet. This is day one with them. I'd had a trip the week before.
They're probably freaking out.
Oh, they were. Oh, God. So
a crevasse.
So I have like this big, long, it's called a cordelette in climbing. If you can just picture, it's like a real thin type rope that you make anchors with. And I could see the ski was like tip to tail across the glacier. It caught in the little bit of snow duff that was on the ice. And I couldn't get to it. I didn't have enough rope. That's how deep in the hole. And I just was able to, I swear to God, I said a little prayer, and through it, and I lassoed. I had a ski brake on these skis, and I pulled it, and as it dropped, it hooked, and I pulled it up, clipped it on, and climbed out of this hole, and I got out of the hole, just like your Indian story, I'm not making it right. I got out, and the girl that was standing closest to me, there was this girl from Jackson who was a great skier, and she was standing right there. She was like, they were like, oh my, they couldn't believe I was fucking alive and not hurt, because they come to find out they could never see me in the hole. I could see them because they were backlit with the sunlight, but they were looking in just a black hole, hearing my echo down there. I was glad they never told me, because seeing them was like, okay, cool. She got out and she's like, oh my God, you didn't say a word. And I said, I didn't want to be a pussy, I didn't have any time to say anything. Also, I was just like in free fall out of nowhere. I come out and the clients
then you're in survival mode after that.
Totally, they had all the clients up against this little rock band that was close by, and they were all just saucer-eyed, Like I was like, all right, what do you guys want to ski?
Yeah,
I was actually really hypothermic when I got out of that. I was like, somebody had some tea, and I was trying to drink that and layer up with some clothing. It was real nice and sunny out. It was good.
The sun will help.
But that was a terrible one, because I'm trying to, as I'm getting older and doing these trips that have inherent danger, being in the mountains, I'm trying to mitigate the risk with a family and a beautiful, wife and young daughter. And, I've lost countless amount of friends in the mountains. It's a really dangerous place, these big mountains around the world. They're dangerous. And,
I think the one thing
I'd quit if I could.
You always say is respect the mountains when we see you on TV. And it's like, I always tell people that too, go out for day hikes. There's all these survival stories that always started with a day hike. And you have to spend the night. Now, we've been warm here lately, but, this morning it was 42 degrees.
You get out there. Miles. It was cold this morning.
Yeah, so you get out there, and you have to spend the night. And all you have is shorts and a T-shirt. You don't have a nylon jacket or...
in life, as we get older, like, I when I moved here, I was involved in search and rescue for about 10 years. And until you've seen stuff, like, you can be told about a crevasse, you can be told about different, whatever it is, name it. But until you've seen, like, when things go bad, or like, if you can think of it, it's happened. I saw that in search and rescue, and that was incredible. You can be new, and you can look at YouTube, and you can do all these different things to educate yourself and read. But until you've experienced it yourself, what it feels like to fall through a crevasse, or what it feels like to see something that just seems impossible.
Now, the big thing, after you fell through the crevasse, did anybody follow you?
Yeah.
It's like, no, we'll follow the other guys.
It was interesting, I when we got back to the boat, this other guide that I was working with, we have our own little cabin on the boat. We got down to the cabin, and he's like, "How you doing?" And honestly, we started drinking some whiskey. It's like that was. I mean, I was spun on. If you've ever come that close to, if you've ever been to the point where you say, "This is how I die." I mean, like, it was certain in my mind for that, whatever it was, a split second. I was certain. I
had the same thing on Class 5 Rapid in West Virginia on the upper Gully River.
The Gully, damn.
And
I know that one.
Yeah, I just bailed out in the middle of a Class 5 Rapid, and at that point, you have no idea, what the hell is going to happen. I never went so far underwater for so long, so quick. You
stayed under for a while.
It just sucked me under. I jumped in the middle of a biggest hole.
I know the Gully, yeah.
And I jumped, what happened is the guide, we were in one of those boats that had the paddles. His paddle hit a rock. And when it hit a rock, he lost control of the paddle. And he pushed my head down because I was right in front of him. And that big wooden oar went flying right past my head, which would have, knocked me out completely. And then we got pinned up against a rock, and I saw it was going to come on me. I was on the bottom. I'm like, I'm out. I'm not the captain. So I jumped out, and like they tell you, jump out, feet downhill, and I just got sucked under. And there was other rafts, we were in a tour. I came up behind them. Like, they were behind waiting for us to come out. And it was a crazy episode. And then the guide was stuck because he's sitting on a wooden seat that's holding the yokes for the oars, and then his head got caught in between the seat and the raft. And he was 6'5", 275 pounds. He was a offensive tackle for West Virginia University. And we thought it was one of our buddies because all we could see is like an arm floating, right? And so we lifted up that raft while we were treading when it came through upside down. And we lifted it up. We could get it like that far off, but it was just enough. And all we could see was his face like
stuck, wedged.
It's wedged. And I'd never seen somebody take a breath of air like that in my life.
Right.
And
wedged in between the floor and the seat.
The side of the side tube of the raft and the seat. And once we got, and then his leg was caught up, and then another guy jumped in, and we raised it up again. He got another breath, and then they cut his leg out, and then they basically undid his helmet because he couldn't get his helmet off because he was panicking.
Right.
I mean, he was, and then I came over and like hung out with us because he's like, yeah, and you guys saved my life, and we're like,
we're drink some whiskey.
Yeah, exactly.
But you go through something like that. I mean, and it's interesting how it affects different people. And I can just remember sitting down in our little, on a sail, but you got this little tiny room, me and the other guy, and just saying like, hey man, tomorrow I'm tail guiding. I can't walk in front right now. And I was spun up for the rest of the trip, like, and got home, and I didn't even get home.
But don't you think that's a natural?
Of course, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't react that way, don't you think?
So.
I think there's something like not really right?
I think it's easy, and we've all done this too with different things that are painful or stressful or whatever. Take and just put it in that box. And I definitely did that for the trip. I just took it and put it away. And guide it. I think the clients, I seem normal. I was, trying to do the same thing, but I'm telling this other guy who I'm close with, saying, "Hey, man, like I'm on edge." And then I went and met my wife and daughter. My daughter was maybe 4 at the time. Met them in Croatia to just do a little climbing trip and meet some friends and do stuff. And so I get off the plane. She has no idea I've been through this experience, and I'm hanging with them, and I'm just like standing on a street corner. I'm just like wanting to pull them in from like the traffic, everything. I was like this vigilance of everything felt fucking dangerous. The traffic felt dangerous, getting in an elevator, like what if this thing, everything, just my heightened.
There was that panic of what could happen.
Everywhere I went. And my wife's like, let's go rock climb, let's go. And I'm just like, I'm not the rock climbing. I'm like, I'm worried about a rock falling from above and hitting us. It's everything. It was your
the realization of how precious life is.
Yeah, and just
how quickly
it's so delicate. Yeah, and that's the one thing you realize, like when accidents happen, like everything's going great. We're having a good time. Everything, and the birds are chirping, and you can hear the river running, and then something happens, and someone's gone. And the birds are still chirping, and the river's still, and the sun's still just beautiful, and the setting's beautiful. But it happens. It happens that quick, and that, I guess, going back to that point, until you've experienced what it takes. I remember being young and like the guides and the people, the older guys being like, "Hey, you got to be careful. You got like, oh man, these guys like."
I was always like, "Hey, y'all, watch this."
Exactly, man. Hey, hold my beer. Totally. But and when you see it, and that, I think that's part of the beauty of getting a little bit older is seeing that. I remember the older guys saying, "Hey, man, you got to see. You can't keep jumping off those cliffs. You can't keep doing whatever it is you're doing because it's going to catch up to you." And then you get older and you're going, hey, younger friends, there's something to be said for it. There's a numbers game. There's a real balance in there of mitigating risk in whatever you're doing, and that was the big takeaway from that one. And also the big takeaway is like when I've been around fatalities in the mountains and lost friends and seen tragic things happen. A ridiculous number of people. I mean, you guys read the headlines.
Justin lost a friend when he was a junior in high school that was on the Olympic team skiing. Fell into a crevasse.
It's endless, and when you get around that stuff, you can either, at least for me, I can either just, take it and be sad and be scared and do whatever. But there's a part of me that just says, man, every day, I say it all the time, like something that resonates that I say with people is never waste a day. Every day is so precious. Like right now, if I want to be out climbing, I'm sitting here with you guys, I'm not thinking about climbing. I'm like right now sitting down with you guys and hanging out and spending this time and sharing with an audience. That's where I need to be. That's where I want to be every second. Who knows if I'll make it home? You don't know.
Yeah, and you have to be in the now. I mean, it's like you have to be where you're at, because you can't change things. You can only control your it's
attitude.
Like when you get older, you start to realize what you actually can control, and it's not a whole lot.
Yeah, your attitude's a big part of it.
And it's like you said, the no whining. I mean, we've had many trips where that comes into play, and it's like it's never a good situation, and always brings up these situations to where it brings in a negative thing, and really it's a team. We are a team, and it's like when you're out doing things, you're going skiing, you're relying on that person.
Absolutely.
And it's like you're relying on them to be a person that's going to help you if you need it, and you're that person that can help them.
And that right there creates an incredible bond.
Definitely.
It really does. I always said, we could go play tennis against each other and we're trying to beat each other, and competitiveness is awesome. I grew up doing that. Or bowl against each other, pick a sport. But I think these mountain sports, hunting even fits into that category. When you're depending on each other in something, I feel like from where I moved, I don't know if it's the same for you, but like where I moved from, there was community, but the sense of community I felt when I moved to this mountain town, Lake Tahoe, is so incredible. And it took me a while to articulate what it is, and I think it's that you go out in the mountains, you count on each other, you depend on each other, you get through tough situations together, people get hurt, you get them out of the mountains together. When people are hurt, we raise money in this community, and that creates the way I think it used to be 100 years ago. We're getting away from it now.
Yeah, because
in some communities,
you had to have a community. I mean, back then they relied on each other.
Yeah.
There wasn't, the modern things that we have now. I mean, you're hungry, go to the grocery store.
It was crazy traveling through Pakistan. That was like a part of their just. Is it called Pashtun Wali? I think maybe it was.
So were you in the Nepalese area?
I was in the Karakoram.
Okay.
The three biggest mountains ranges in the world are the Hindu Kush, the Himalaya, and the Karakoram. The Karakoram actually have the highest elevation and the most amount of rock, which is what we were after. But the Pakistani people, I mean, these were people that had dirt floors. They didn't have, they had goats that they were
villages.
Yep, really, really poor. People that couldn't read, didn't have access.
How did they receive you guys?
Amazingly, and that was the point. Like when we traveled through, I remember at first coming from Western culture, it was so interesting to go through these communities and see people that would were like coming out and offering you their goat yogurt. And I was like, oh, what do they want? Are they going to shake us down for money now? But they were like,
they're trying to give you stuff. Yeah.
To survive in those mountains. I might be wrong, but I remember it from the movie Lone Survivor with Marcus Luttrell, that was that one guy that saved his life, that took him in and went against the Taliban. And I always say about Pakistan, people say, well, I had friends in the State Department going over there that were like, hey, man, it's a dangerous place. Here's the report. Here's what we know. And people would say, how dangerous was Pakistan when you were there? And I would say on a good day, you'd get served 3 cups of tea. The first cup of tea is for any visitor. That's very typical in that kind of culture and tradition. A second cup of tea is they consider you a friend. A third cup of tea is they can consider you family. There was a great book written by Greg Mortensen called 3 Cups of Tea. It was a #1 bestseller. And I said, on a good day, you get served 3 cups of tea. And on a bad day, they cut your fucking head off. because there is, there's an incredibly bad
That's a big scale there.
It's a big scale. It is a big scale. But that is really true. There's a terrible element there that most of us Westerners read about. But the people I saw there, we shared the same common interest of wanting to just have food, shelter, clothing, have a better future for our children.
It is basic for them.
Uh-huh.
And in some ways, when you simplify the life, it's like the monks. They're happy they have nothing.
Yeah.
And when you simplify it, it becomes really good. I remember when I did whitetail outfitting. We were building my lodge, and we had to live in a tent for 3 months.
That's great, huh?
We had no phone. Now we had electric, and
it was a canvas tent. We had a wood stove.
We had a wood stove in it. So we.
How old were you?
I was just coming out of high school, right?
You were 20. He was 20.
Oh,
he was in the.
What a life!
Yeah, he was in it, but he didn't really like it.
No cell service at the time.
Right at that age, it's funny. Yeah,
so he was away. It was like, here's what I always say: is like when your kid is 12, you're the smartest human on the planet.
Oh, yeah.
By the time they're 15, you're the most ignorant person on the planet. And so, like, he did this thing where you know, he kind of got away from everything because I used to take him hunting, and then, you know, he wasn't into that anymore. He didn't want to do any of that. I mean, of course he skied, and he's a great skier, and we always did that together. So there was always things that we always did, but, you know, Dad's a hillbilly, and, you know, I'm not going to do what he does, and he would never drink whiskey. And then when he found out about whiskey, then I couldn't really keep whiskey around anymore. But
do you remember that? Like just being like, God, this sucks. I want to be talking to chicks and
I want to be
looking on the
partying.
internet.
Well, he kind of went through a period of, you know, girlfriend breakup, and, you know, kind of like in that, you know, what happens in that gray area, and then we went out there, and it changed. He changed. And I called it career eliminating. He realized he didn't want to hang drywall, be a carpenter, electrician, a farmer, because this is all the stuff we did.
Right.
We were building a lodge, plus we were planting crops for the deer. So like we did all this stuff, trail maintenance, logging, because, you know, you have to be able to log if you're back east, because of the forest, like there's going to be trees fall. And it changed, and all of a sudden, like his mom told me, Mary told me, like he said he's not going to hunt when he's out at the farm. I'm like, that's okay, because there's only three things to do: split wood, work, or hunt. Right. And then all of a sudden, like after like
sound like the best choice out of the three.
Right. After like a month being in the tent, he realized, like, shit, I'm not getting out of here until we build this building. And
the quicker I build it, the quicker I'm
out. And then every time you turn around, it's like, where's Justin? Oh, he's putting the scope on his shotgun. Oh, where's Justin? Oh, he's sighting in his bow. And then you know, he wound up shooting the biggest buck, which is that one up there on the left.
That's a beauty.
You know, at the farm that year, and then it changed him. And even my...
Is that a whitetail?
Yeah. Even my wife
said... Those are both whitetails right there. Those are both taken from Ohio.
Yeah, those are both taken off the farm. But it changed him. Like, all of a sudden, he's like, hey, you know, the town he didn't want to go into, this little hillbilly town of 2,500.
That's like every country song, isn't it?
Yeah, and then all of a sudden...
Can't wait to get out of town and, you know, get out of this little small town. And then as you get old, you can't wait to just come back.
And then he's like, well, hey, can we go into town and take my deer into town? And like, so we went into the check-in station. We had to check it in. And there was like, people was like, hey, man, can I get a picture taken with your deer? And so, like, you know, he was like digging that. And it changed him. And my wife's like, you know, that changed him. She's like, you know, every young man should experience that. Because there is a sense of accomplishment. I mean, granted, it is a blessing every time you get a harvest. It's not, you know, there's skill involved, but it's also more so it's a blessing.
Yes.
And then, like, all of a sudden, like it just builds your confidence. Like you know, you can create this, and you create this meat, and you're sharing it, you know. And like you said before, it's the hunt. It's figuring out where they're going to be. You know, he'd been hunting. Now, granted, he did choose his tree stand because it was the only one that had a cell signal.
That was a factor back then.
That's really good.
That was a factor.
That's really good. So he must have gotten more lucky for looking at the phone and checking Instagram.
Well, he was able to, like, he called me, and where I was, I didn't have a signal, and I could hear, I shot 12. That's all I heard.
And it's probably hard for you to even imagine, like, how different that experience of not being into it to then embracing it, how different that would have been 20 years before when you didn't have the internet and all these other distractions, right? It maybe would have hooked you more. Of course, there's that thing between a dad and a son of having to separate. I want to do the same goddamn thing my dad's doing. To then, you know, I've followed my dad's path in a lot of ways, you know.
Well, I think that you learn what's good, and you take that with you, and, you know, I mean, I think that's with every kind of thing. But you know, he grew up hunting, and he liked it, and, you know, it was one of those things that we always did. Right. So, you know,
even just
like he got his hunter safety.
Life, you know?
Yeah, he got his hunter safety at like 8 years old, and so I had him out. You know, Mary would say to me, "He's like, well, if you want to go hunting, you have to take him with you."
Right.
And he'd be like, waking up in the 4
Oh, I
o'clock
know.
in the
That's
morning.
the hard part. For
Yeah,
kids.
yeah.
Your ass
That's hard
off.
on the kids, right?
So then I would
Freezing.
say to him, I was like, so where the farm was in Amish country. I was like, hey, dude, I'll buy you a pie.
Did you grow up in Amish country?
Yeah.
Huh?
So where the farm was. So I told him, I was like, I'll buy you a pie and some cheese. And then he'd be like,
Some good Amish bread.
yeah, so like the
cheese,
pie's really
pie.
good. The cheese is really
See,
good.
that's cool. You guys have that experience because people out west have no concept of how unique that part of American culture is. It's incredible.
Yeah, the whole Amish community.
Yes.
Yeah. When my farm was there, I shot from them the butter. It's I can't find butter like it anywhere
Right. I
else.
can
I mean,
only
it's
imagine.
it's not
Home
yellow.
Yeah.
It's not yellow. It has like a yellowish tint, but it's more white than yellow. So it's like completely different.
Sure.
You know,
It's organic.
the pies,
Organic.
the pies, you know, and all that, you know, that was awesome. But that's what would get him out there and whatever it took. And even though I knew it wasn't going to be great hunting, you know, because I have an 8-year-old, a 9-year-old with me, you know, I mean, the fact is I was out there
Yeah, exactly.
and he was out there.
How old were you when you got your first deer?
I got my first deer when I was, what was it, 13?
Oh,
Yeah.
12?
that's great. That's
And
American right there.
and they were so close, and it was firearm season, and you know, and I'm always thinking because I want to eat them, right? So I was like, you know, they're really close. It's like, can you do a headshot?
Right. Exactly.
So he like shot it in the head.
Oh,
you
he
know?
did, right?
Yeah,
Your first
yeah,
one.
Yeah.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah, because it was like,
It was a doe.
It was a doe.
Yeah.
And its head was just sticking out, and it was like 30, 40 yards.
that's great.
So, you know, and then the second one, I didn't tell him headshot, but he did the headshot.
That's how we do it.
That's how we do it.
That's
now.
awesome.
That's how you do it.
and
Two
then
doe, two
my
headshots.
wife was like, you know, I'm worried like that he only did headshots. I was like, no,
Don't worry about it. That's good. That's good shooting.
Yeah. We got all 4 quarters. There was
No-
not a
no
quarter
meat
waste.
waste.
There was no meat waste.
That's all.
You
Yeah,
know,
that's good.
But it was just he's always been good at shooting. Even when he was 8 or 9 years old, he was drawing back a 40-pound bow, and he was able to hunt legally, and he was able to hit the target. But you know, he wasn't ready to actually harvest something, because this one time we had 4 does came past me, and I had him up on this platform at my buddy's house. That we built this platform for hunting, and it was like,
Do they do that here in the West? Like back east, like we'd build those big ass like fucking
Gazebo.
Dude,
type
yeah.
of thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Hunting shack.
Yeah,
up-
exactly,
up about 10,
gazebo.
20
yeah,
feet.
yeah. But no, they don't do that out here. But we do
2x4s just as a ladder up
Yeah.
the tree.
And we're
Great.
some of the few that hunt out of tree stands. We do hunt out of tree stands here. But I saw these does coming along the fence line, and I let them go by. And then they went past Justin, and I saw him jump over the fence, and then he was like 9, right? So he just got his, you know, hunting license and everything. And I go down there, and I was like, hey, did you see those deer come by? He's like, no, but I saw 4 big rabbits come down. They jumped over the fence. I mean, it was just at daybreak.
Right.
Like,
right,
but
right,
in his 9-year-old brain,
Oh, that's awesome.
they
right?
were like
Right.
giant rabbits.
Right. Right. If you haven't seen real, yeah, that's
You know, so it's like it's
Especially
a
in that
process.
light where it's like you kind of
Totally.
can make something out, but you kind of
Yeah.
don't really know exactly what you're looking at. And that right before daybreak.
Anyway,
It's
I
the
know you
best-
mentioned Antarctica,
best
and
part of the
Justin's got a
morning.
picture up right now. And Justin, explain the picture.
Oh yeah, so we got Todd here up on a paddleboard, and that's Antarctica.
Antarctica.
correct?
Yeah, correct.
And there's a bunch of icebergs around, paddleboarding through in between them.
What's the temperature of the water there?
31.5 degrees.
So we're
I do
safe
all the
to s-
weather ops for the guiding meetings when we go down there, so I'm positive on that one.
So
fucking
basically, that's what we call the no fall zone.
You know, it's crazy. We do this polar plunge in Antarctica where we get the guests, and I think they do it on some of those other trips that go down there. And they get maybe 1 or 2 people, you know, guys like you want to go see penguins. And for the record, too, for those listening, remember this. If you get one thing out of this whole podcast, know this. Antarctica has the penguins. The Arctic in the north has the polar bears. Polar bears don't cross the equator. and penguins don't cross the equator. All those goddamn children's books that we read have the penguin. You know, Santa Claus got the penguins and the polar bears around and stuff. They don't interact together. So this is down there where the penguins are, and yeah, the water's really cold. They do this polar plunge, and with this group of people that go down there, these people from around the world that are skiers and are willing to climb up a mountain to ski back down, they all want to do it. And people go and put their swimsuit on and jump in and get right back out. And
you have to pull them out?
You know, it's really funny. The first year I went down there, I went with there was like a Warren Miller crew and all these professional skiers, and then a bunch of clients too from around the world. The ship that we take down is like a 97-meter ship, so it's a big icebreaker that's been converted into one of these ships, almost like a cruise liner type, not totally, but somewhat like. And they had the polar plunge, and they had this little dock that, like I guess it's called a dock. Like you put it off the side of the ship, you can remove it and pull it back in. And people were jumping off that, and it was taking a while, and the line was really long because all these people wanted to go. Next thing you know, off the first deck, people started jumping off the first deck. And then some of the other guys, these pros that, are badass, like in the air, started jumping off the top deck. People are and the captain, who's in charge of every single soul on board, all of a sudden just goes manic of like, God damn, I don't know who's in the water, who's on the boat, because you've got, like when we get off the boat, we have to sign off, and when we come back on the boat, we have to sign back in, so you don't leave somebody.
Yeah, because if you fall off in that temperature water, you could just sink.
Yeah, or somebody just jumps off one of the decks.
Yeah, you could never come back up.
Oh my God, yeah. So that was epic. So now, yeah, the typical scenario is they tie a little rope around your waist and you jump in, and then that way they can reel you in if something crazy happens. But that was that was one of the best days of my life I can remember in terms of just having that everything lined up. We went and skied this peak that had not been skied. We called it the Little Matterhorn. It looked like the Matterhorn down there with this other buddy of mine, Doug Workman, that I work with at Mammut. And we went and skied this, took these clients on this thing they'd never skied. We got to name the thing. And we came back to the ship, and my boss, Doug Staup, who owns IceX, said, hey, I got these inflatable paddle boards if you guys want to take them out. And if you look, you can see on Doug's picture there, he has one of those giant oil cans.
Yeah,
the Foster's beer. We went and grabbed a couple of those and took them out with us.
That's funny that those are down there.
And it was just cowboy as shit. Like we just took those things out and just started. We didn't ask the crew, the captain, because there's a crew that runs the ship, and then we run the ski expedition. And we just started paddling out. We just got out there and we're paddling around. We came across these whale bones that were in the getting as shallow as the water's crystal clear down there. It was a calm day. This picture, you can see just how calm it was. Bluebirds. And after like skiing these like new lines, we go out on these paddle boards. This was probably 10 years ago, probably some of the first people to paddleboard down there. I mean, it was just amazing. We had the beer, and we're out there just paddling, just taking it in, and having just a totally different, that Lewis and Clark thing, man.
Yeah.
Like it isn't that we were the first ones doing it. I just love the experience of like no one's ever probably seen these whale bones that are. We came across. I thought it was a shipwreck at first. Because you could see like the rib cage exactly of the whale underneath there, and I was like, "No, dude, that's a whale that just died in 10 feet of water."
You wonder if the first people that built a boat saw that,
right, and said, "This might be the design.
This is design. This big son of a bitch can swim." Like,
good point.
Yeah,
that makes sense because the boat is built in a similar structure.
It looks very similar. Exactly.
Yeah, the old ones,
the old
wooden ones,
for sure.
But what a place, to get to go down there and ski and experience that. And
when you started the Adventure Film Festival, love that because man, the people that show up there, I think that may be the only time they go out.
Todd, go ahead and explain what the Adventure Film Festival is for those who don't really know.
So the Tahoe Adventure Film Festival was an idea I had. Like it's going on 20 years now. Moving to Tahoe 25 years ago, I always thought, man, I'd go to these festivals like the Banff Film Festival, and I'd see these, really exciting movies that would get me really excited. And then there'd be a film about that the rainforest is dying. And not that that's not important, but it would I'd be all uplifted.
Buzzkiller.
And then the Buzzkiller film would come in. And then I'd watch another uplifted film. There'd be another Buzzkiller about how dangerous the mountains are or something. And I was like, God damn, we need one that's just, the whole thing's uplifting. Right. So it started out with just all these extreme skiing, the limits of surfing, what was happening that year, the limits of what they did in climbing.
Always some really awesome kayaking footage too.
Yeah, some crazy kayaking footage.
Hucking off of waterfalls and...
Yeah, 100-foot waterfalls, you name it. It started with that, and then again going back to like the friends that I lost, friends that were in the film festival, friends that I played with, friends that I was with when they passed. That started coming together, and I was like, man, I don't, where's my responsibility? I'm just promoting this just hard charging. Is it worth losing your life to? And the film fest started to kind of morph into something more about going back to what we talked about earlier in the podcast of just bringing people together and the experience of it all. It doesn't, if you're skiing at the highest level and doing some first ascent, that has a level of excitement that's amazing to that person doing it. But if it's the first time you're skiing in Antarctica and it's a 30-degree slope, it's the same experience in your brain and your body and your soul. That first deer you shoot.
Oh yeah.
It's the same experience, and it started morphing into, not that we don't show the real extreme stuff, but we started putting in more, just tying in that the happiest people in the world seem to be people that are connected to family, friends, community, and a purpose, a passion, and that's what it encompasses.
And I think it goes to say that it's usually something outdoors.
That's a great point.
It's usually whether you are, remember what
You're
was his
absolute
name?
on that.
NBC Today Show. The guy used to show 100-year-old people, and like more times than not, you're like, oh yeah, he spends every day at his garden.
That is such a great observation. I agree with you.
And he's 100 years old, and he still teaches Sunday school. Yep. So it's like that. There is something to be said with, connecting yourself with people, community, the outdoors.
And a purpose. Going back to the guy with the fishing rod, he wouldn't stand at the side of the river all day long with his hands on his hip, but he has a purpose. He's fucking fishing.
Yeah. And, we only missed one of them. We missed 2019.
Right on.
And
Thanks for the support.
And then
the last one we were at, there was a guy climbing El Capitan with no ropes.
Yep, Alex Honnold.
And didn't you present him with some kind of
The
award?
golden
Yeah, he got the Golden Camelot. He has a house here in town now, Alex Honnold, yeah.
Well, now
most famous climber in the world now.
Now
that
tell
film
me
got
this.
Got an Oscar.
Now
Oh,
tell
really?
me this. What he did, climbing El Capitan.
No ropes.
No ropes.
And that's a climb that people usually takes a couple days for him to get up to the top.
And
right?
so, and I forget what time he did it in. Do you remember what
It
time?
goes super fast when you're not using ropes or putting protection in the rock or building belays at each rope length.
I mean, but still.
Couple hours we're talking?
Yeah, that's probably
Now,
3 hours, I'm guessing.
Is that the greatest athletic feat that you've ever heard of in your life?
Yes.
Okay, because when I saw it, like it was almost bringing tears in my eyes, and then to meet him afterwards, like you see him, like you
Just
would
goes
never
to
expect that guy just did
Yeah.
the greatest athletic achievement of any. I don't know of anything else in the world that.
I'm glad to hear you say that because I do think that is one of the greatest athletic accomplishments that we've ever seen because it's Super Bowl. You miss,
Now, has anybody else duplicated it?
You just, no, hell no. No one's even come close to it. I don't know that it'll ever be done again. You miss the Super Bowl ring or, you blow it in these sports. The only thing I can think is that in history, somewhere lost there, and this is, I've thought about this. I love it that you brought it up, that I think it is one of the greatest accomplishments because one mistake is absolute death. There's no breaking a leg. It's a 3,000-foot wall.
Yeah.
After the very first 50 feet, you're risking.
It's straight up the whole way, right?
Yes.
It's not like
No.
It's 100% commitment.
And it's technically such a. It's even the high guys that climb much harder than him can climb at the highest level. He's a fantastic, amazing, accomplished climber and climbs at a very high level. But the best climbers in the world can't even still fathom what he did there. The only thing I can think is that somewhere in history there was some warrior on battlefields out there that had something similar, luck, skill, everything tied together that maybe is lost or is in some history books that I'm not aware of. That's the only other thing I can compare it to because a mistake was instant death.
Yeah.
Whereas in sports, the way our culture looks at sports, it's not comparable. What he did, and it was very calculated.
The risk involved.
And then I like when he talked about like halfway up, how it came across his mind, like, what the fuck am I doing?
Well, that was a different one. That was on Half Dome when he first was warming up to this thing, and it was always in the back of his mind is a goal that he was going to free climb. That is, climb with his hands and feet.
No ropes.
Yeah, and free solo is when you climb. Yeah, free climbing is with a rope, hands and feet is what you're using. Free solo is when you're using hands and feet but no rope.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it for people that don't
and it
climb,
it just was like amazing to me because like I've never when I got done with that I was telling Justin
your palms are sweating.
I was like they're sweaty now just thinking
right,
about
totally, me too.
Yeah, and I was telling him was like that has to be the greatest athletic accomplishment of stamina, flexibility, and skill
And mindset.
and mind over matter.
Jesus.
That I don't even know of anything that even comes close to it.
Yeah, they've done studies looking at his brain. I mean, he's wired in a really unique, amazing way.
And he was like
He's such an interesting, cool person.
yeah, he was so mellow and like he was so like appreciative and everybody was like, dude, like after I seen the video, I was like, dude, like I just want to hug you, like this freaking amazing.
And the cameramen that were there, like filming it, they were they were turmoiled and like, am I filming this accident that's going to happen and I'm going to live with this the rest of my life? Like, should I be here? The guy's making the film. I mean, the whole if you've not seen Free Solo, it's you don't have to be a climber at all to appreciate it. The other film that also came out that same year is called The Dawn Wall with Tommy Caldwell, which is a much dramatically more difficult climb with ropes. But what it took to get up it, it's equally compelling story, even for those that aren't climbers. It's you don't have to be a climber to appreciate just a good. I love a good documentary about anything that I don't know about. Is always.
Well, I just think like when I look at stuff that's like, oh, okay, there's absolutely no way I can do that. No. Like live music, I love live music because I can't play an instrument. Right. So like when I watch it, I love it. So. One of the things I wanted to talk about was Kirkwood. What's one of your best memories of old Kirkwood, meaning like pre-Vail?
Pre-Vail Kirkwood.
Pre-Vail Kirkwood.
The good old Kirkwood.
The good old Kirkwood.
That's such a good question.
I remember coming across you. I remember I was skiing on a powder day, and like you didn't even know who I was, and we were coming down the hill and it was just past Sentinel Bowl and it was like way steep powder and I was down below you guys were coming down, you were with like 2 or 3 dudes and I could hear your voice and I recognized your voice because we always loved you on Tahoe Today and we still watch all the time and I heard your voice and I was like, hey Todd, how the fuck are you doing? And you're like, who's that? And I was like, your best fucking fan. And it was probably that was probably like 2003, 4, 5, one of those really good years.
Wow. Those were some good years.
Yeah, that was some good skiing.
But I think about like the old Kirkwood, dude. Like, give us one of your memories.
That's a good question. It was probably that day. You know what I mean? I think that's the thing that's so unique about like skiing in a place like that, the way it was. You'd have a day, and then the next year, this is the best day. This is the best day skiing of the year, and then the next time, this is the best day of my life. The next day, you do the same thing. But I feel like in this town, like I've been here since '96. I think in just all aspects of life, whether it's hunting or skiing or your town, man, it's not the way it used to be. I think I feel like I was thinking this the other day. I feel like there's maybe every 20 years there's enough change or enough of a generational change that people kind of remember the way it was. But we have to remember things are always changing. Vail's bought. Kirkwood is different. It
doesn't change the ski experience. I mean, once you get out there on the hill, it's the same.
The negative stuff is to me super obvious. It's the same like when I've lost friends in the mountains. It's like the fact that person's gone and the tragedy and their family and all that stuff is so obvious. But I want to focus on the positive of like that just drives home to me how important every day is. And I'm just every day I have at Kirkwood, I don't care if fucking Vail owns it or Costco.
I know, but
it's out of my control.
Do you remember the old Kirkwood when they would
of course,
and they would everybody be lined up on Eagle Bowl before they open up backside,
yeah.
And they say they drop it and
it'd be a Chinese downhill to the bottom.
You remember how mean the ski patrol was? The ski patrol would just like They were like the meanest guy. They were like so
remember
salty.
when they used to snip your pass, like the
Yeah,
corner of the
hell
pass?
yeah, of course.
So like one year he had 3 corners.
Right, 3 corners.
Yeah, and the
For
ski
what? For what?
skiing too fast.
Skiing too fast.
Isn't that funny? Skiing too fast.
Going too fast.
So, but it was funny because the last time the ski patrol looked at him, was like, "You're running out of corners." So
That's a funny one.
And then the other one was the opening of the backside. Remember everybody lining up on Cable's Crest?
Oh yeah.
We've made it to second, third chair on those before, and that's like
it's like a full skate
Skier
rate.
cross,
Skier
yeah.
cross.
Yeah,
You're
totally.
skating as fast as you can to get over there.
No, those are great. Yeah.
They don't do that anymore. Everything's
I've-
more tame now with the whole opening of, of the mountain.
Yeah.
And they open the backside. They don't allow anybody to line up for that skier cross
Yeah.
to get down to the first chair.
for better or worse, you know.
Okay, there's another question I have for you.
But I guess some of that, it isn't so conscious, but I think all of that has driven me to do more and more backcountry skiing,
yeah.
where I'm hiking up and skiing
yeah.
down, and it isn't a real conscious like. And maybe at some points I'm like, fuck, Kirkwood's going to be a shit show today.
Yeah.
I'm just going to go. But every time I go into the backcountry, even when the conditions suck, it's just a good experience. I'm getting exercise. I'm in nature. It goes back to like hunting. I'm out there.
And you're reading the signs.
Yes, and it takes me into the mountains, at the
And
resort.
even if it's not the best skiing condition day, just being out there on the mountains, just cruising around, definitely brightens your day, makes you feel better.
There's something
and
about
even
it.
if it's like, oh man, the conditions are icy, it's not good skiing, even though you're out there, it's better than sitting at home, right? I mean,
every time. It's hard for people sometimes to just get all that equipment together, whatever it is that you're doing, and get out and do it. Get out the door. Get your ass out. You made that great point about these people that live to be, 100 years old, or people that are happy being outside. It's incredible
They're
how simple
outside
it is.
and they're in their community.
And you have to live in a place where you can do it. You know what I mean? Like we live here in Tahoe, I mean, even Ohio, not having probably as much to do as we do here, but you could get outside every day like that.
Yeah, I
We'll
mean,
live forever, man.
We always went outside. Now the one we have a couple things, and then we're gonna wrap it up. One is, you're on Tahoe today. Have you ever been suspended by the FCC?
Man, I've said just about I've tried to be. I honestly have. I've said every cuss word that you're not supposed to say on TV. I was making fun of fat people today on TV. I had a funny shtick I came up with just this week. Yeah. And so, but I take a lot of time off there. I negotiated that from the very beginning. That I take trips, I do stuff. That my life's more important than actually working, kind of, than this job. And it's been a great job. It's been a great thing. I've met so many great people. I've enjoyed it. I love this town. I love promoting it.
Yeah,
everything about it. But there's just every time I go to take a trip away, at some point I just started saying to whoever was covering for me when I was gone, I'd take 2 weeks, take a month. I'm gone for these long periods, guiding down in Antarctica, up in the Arctic. I'd say, hey, when you're covering for me, just say, hey, I'm so-and-so filling in for Todd who's on an FCC suspension. I think that's funny. Yeah, I give them the joke. But goddamn, everywhere I go to the grocery store, hey, man, I heard you got suspended. So my shtick has always been like, yeah, I did it. And it's people I know well, and I'm like, I'm just not allowed to talk about it right now. I always say, and I've never told it, I never said, people that watch the show are going to be, oh, damn. I always talk about our attorney, Dick Wiener. And I'm like, Dick Wiener said I can't talk about it. And I've for 20 years, I've talked about it. We have an attorney, Dick Wiener, that says, like, I'm not allowed to talk about, like, one of my favorite ones ever was, I had this shtick where I was talking about suicide bombers. And I was like, these suicide bombers is the most tragic thing going on in the world right now. These suicide bombers, they go and they blow up all these innocent people, and they do it for this cause. It's amazing. They have that kind of passion. It's such a dangerous thing. We first saw it, happening who knows how long ago. I'm thinking of the kamikazes. But I'm like, I hear that they pay their family a certain amount of money, and and that's how they get these people to influence them to actually blow themselves up and kill innocent people. I'm like, and just hear me out on it. My idea on the TV show that I was saying was, I say we take these suicide bombers and we bring them to ski towns. and we start to use them for avalanche control. hey, Mohammed, go out there on that cornice and pull your string, push your button, whatever. Boom! Hey, chair 6 is open.
Chair 6 is good to go.
I had this whole shtick, and I was like, Emerald Bay, hey, go out to Emerald Bay, go down to Emerald Bay, ski up, right, do it. Okay, Emerald Bay is open. I had this whole shtick about doing. I like think about the possibilities for mining. Hey, we think there's gold at the end of this tunnel. Go down there, blow it. Hey, we found gold. And later that day, like the boss called me at home, and he literally, this is true. He called me at home. He's like, "Hey, what'd you say about suicide bombers today?" I'm like, "Why? What?" I had this whole shtick about like using them for avalanche control. And he said, some lady called and said that she was who the fuck is offended by using suicide bombers for something proactive and positive where they don't hurt anybody. They make things safer. And he said, well, she said she grew up in a country that had suicide bombers. And I said, me too. 9/11, man. We live in a country that had suicide bombers. Like, this is ridiculous. So he's like, maybe just don't say it again, whatever. So I would come back on the show and I would say, hey, I want to apologize for what I said about suicide bombers the other day. And then I would repeat the whole thing over again just to be like, go.
Well, that also reminds me of how on
But
the
no, I've
Tahoe
never-
Adventure Film Festival, that one lady
Oh, my God.
that was calling you out on because
We had go-go dancers.
you had
Go-go dancers.
had go-go dancers.
That was a nice little touch, I think, especially because the event was held at a venue at the casinos at a.
But
That was
tell us
something.
what you did to.
Well, that was interesting. We got this cancel culture, and to me, that was at the very beginning of it.
Yeah, I agree with that.
This event, going back to what the Tahoe Adventure Film Festival it's a celebration of our communities and our connection, and through these sports and all these things, and that's always been the messaging, and making it inclusive. Ironically, that year was highlighting women in action adventure sports films who have been in the past. Not represented as well for whatever reason. No judgment there. But that year, we were able to find enough films that fit our criteria and make it work. And we gave the award to Jamie Anderson, which was the first woman to get and there was this one person. I don't even want to say her name. It's like
It's
it's like an active shooter. My brother, 30 years.
They want. That's why they did it.
Yes.
Because they get their name out there.
But she was very good at manipulating the platforms by going to the paper and then all Twitter and these. She knew how to do it. I was unfamiliar with all this. Went to the paper, got the right person at the paper to do this story about that we were being misogynistic, and we had these women on stage that were go-go dancing and created this thing. But it was one person. There's so much of that going on in our society right now where there's this small fraction of people that are influencing how everybody, because I feel like there's so many things right now, left or right.
Everybody falls in the middle. Most people fall in the middle.
Yes, but there's so many people right now that are going, that seems ridiculous. Like, why would we let a man take estrogen and compete in the Olympics as a woman? I think most people see that is an unfair thing to do, just as an example. But yet it's being considered, it's being it's this thing that I don't believe that a majority of people believe in. That was this thing. She was able to manipulate it and do the whole thing, and I would have just ignored it because it was one person and she wasn't there. That the paper then, the Tribune, the Tahoe Tribune, then went and got another woman who wasn't there to talk about it. And I was like, wait a second, you guys. I even talked to the editor, Rob Gallo.
Yeah.
Gallagher.
Galloway.
Yeah, Galloway. And we had a conversation. We agreed to disagree, but I'm like, you had a person write a negative story about the film festival about this, interviewed people that weren't at the film festival. The person that wrote the story wasn't at the film festival. Have you been there? This is like a community thing. The reality, going back to the reality, the go-go dancers. You can see, how does that fit into action adventure sports films? It doesn't. The whole thing is just fun and crazy and wild. And before the film show, you want to create ambiance in a room. So we have go-go dancers, we have a DJ, we had a midget for years that was running around. Little John, he was great. If they'd have called me out on like exploiting midgets, they would have been right. Like, I was wrong. But that guy became like an icon at our festival. Everybody knew him and loved him.
He had a choice, right?
He did, but they would have had me more there, and that I was not probably sensitive enough to it at the time. Like when my initial idea was, I'm having a little guy's going to dress the same as me. And I see that now. But what it turned into was Little John. Man, I got to know his family, his mom, his dad, his sister came. Everybody knew him by Little John.
We loved him.
He was awesome.
He was part of the Tahoe tribe.
Yes, it was fantastic. And that year, tragically, he had died. He had fallen into a river and drowned, like when we had the big runoff, and it was tragic. And we just still had the go-go dancers, but I wanted his presence to be felt. I talked about it at the film festival.
Yeah.
The whole celebration was women, so it was just a crazy thing. But that woman went to every one of our sponsors, so I wasn't able to ignore it. I had to go to Mammut, which is one of my big sponsors that I've worked with for years as an ambassador.
Yeah.
Sierra at Tahoe, Barton Health, all these people, and I had to explain what was going. Some of them understood exactly what was going on. I didn't lose one sponsor out of it. They all understood what this was, but I had to deal with it, and the stress and the time and the energy. And that woman left town. She was basically run out of town because she was a very evil bridge burner type person.
Yeah, that's how she was trying to get on the map, get her fame,
and that's exactly what it was.
60 seconds of fame.
So there was some real lessons there to like standing up and fighting sometimes. Like I talked to some friends of mine that I consider some of my most intelligent, smartest friends, and they were like, man, I don't know, maybe you should back off, you shouldn't be doing. But in my heart and soul, I knew where the intention came from.
Yeah.
I knew my intentions were pure and good, and I wasn't, and the women that danced there, I knew them, and they were professional dancers, and they were incredible at their art, and they loved being there, and they were paid for their work. Everything about it was pure and genuine and well-intentioned. And if one person doesn't like it who wasn't there, that's where she should have been, not there.
Right.
But to try to raise hell, there's too much of that going on right now that's frustrating, and people need to stand up and fight
the fact
for
that you
some
did
of these things and be outspoken. And the politics right now, the media, the way things are going is frustrating, I think, for all of us. Like you said, I think most of us meet right in the middle somewhere. And that's not happening. Having discussions with my friends that think different than me on topics, I like to discuss that with them. I think it's really important. I don't know that these social platforms are the place to do that and vent and put stuff out there. I see that. But I think that's what's influencing so much of what's going on.
But I
right
think
now.
the fact of the matter is that she brought that up, and then it became a rallying cry for the tribe.
Man, people rallied behind it. The best part was seeing the community, like the people that wrote to the paper and had stuff to say. It was beautiful to see people rally. But my favorite part, and there was a reporter for the Tribune the next year that reached out and said, "Hey, I want to do an article on it." He personally said, "Hey, I'm sorry to see what happened last year. That was wrong. I know you. This is." We did this whole article about what the films are going to be, who's going to be there, At the very end of the interview, he says, "Hey, I have to ask it though. I have to ask, are you still going to have go-go dancers this year?" And I said, "Twice as many." And we did. We had twice as many. It was great, And then we had that bodybuilder that was there. That was funny. That came. And, it was like a ring girl holding up the thing. It's people need to get back to laughing and realizing, that.
So why don't you go ahead and when's that film festival going to take place this year?
We had to miss last year with the COVID thing. And we have a date set now for January 8th, 2022.
Damn, I think we can make it this year.
Yeah, typically we do it the second week of December, but this next one, we pushed it a little bit further back with scheduling. Mont Bleu, which is now Bally's Tahoe, I think. They've changed. They've gone through a bunch of changes.
What is it?
Whatever we call
Caesars.
it. Yeah, Caesars. Yeah, Caesars, exactly. Caesars, right here in South Lake Tahoe. They're gonna. They're starting to line up entertainment. We're seeing that. It feels good. I think people are just dying to see live entertainment.
We're seeing it when we go to events. So like we've been trying to do events and through all this, and we found events to do. And
you guys are outside. That was nice. Your Homewood event was great.
Yeah, our Homewood event is great. And we were able to push that through last year. Just mainly.
Oh, you did last year too.
We did it. We did it in the middle of the pandemic. There wasn't even lodging open.
We had the only event to happen in.
I remember
the whole Lake
you
Tahoe
now telling
Basin.
me that. And did you have like typical turnout?
We limited it.
We were limited.
We had 250 participants.
That's beautiful.
And then this year we had 1,000.
Yep.
And then next year we're going to probably double that.
I mean, it's like anything to me. If you don't want to go to the film festival, don't go for whatever reason. If you want to be there, I was frustrated that California had such restrictions that I couldn't operate my bit. I couldn't guide. I couldn't do the film festival. I couldn't do this, but I still paid my LLC money in the state of California. I was like amazed when it came time to do taxes last year. I was like, I didn't have anything to report other than the TV show. I hadn't done shit, but I'm like, I gotta still pay this thing to the state. Like they wouldn't let me operate. I would have at least opened to whoever wanted to come to it. So we got to keep fighting. I think for just our freedoms and I don't tell someone to wear a mask or take a mask off. No one should. Just everybody move forward and
what
if
happened?
you don't want to go out, don't go out. If you want to come out, come out.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's fair to
I think everybody's ready for it. I think
it does seem like it.
Everybody's ready. I don't think it depends on where you stand.
Yeah.
But I think.
Like
we talked about the majority in the middle.
And I do respect.
And I think the problem is like what you were saying before, is that we're only hearing...
Sure, who knows?
From one side or the other. We're not really hearing from in the middle people that, are kind of the silent majority.
I agree with you. I think that my favorite part of the pandemic was, and still is, I love how every single one... 3 of us here right now, pretty like-minded people, I think. But every single person has a little bit different perspective on the handling and how to do it and how they look at it. And I love human nature, and I still am fascinated that every single person has a different, maybe around the world, a different perspective on it, from the media they take in, from their own experiences, from their health. I mean, if you're an obese person, this thing's fucking dangerous. There's no question about it. If you have some really serious health issues, it's serious. And I respect that.
But also your health issues that you've created, and most of these things are lifestyle things.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because everybody's like, what did you do during the pandemic? You know what we did? We ate a bear. Because
you like bear meat?
Bear meat is awesome.
Really? I never had good bear meat.
You haven't had it cooked, right?
Right.
And also too, wild game has to be aged. But so like we didn't want to go to the grocery store because we didn't want to wear a mask. We had a freezer full of bear. So like at first Mary wouldn't eat it, but me and him were like, oh dude, let's make some burritos.
You didn't have any deer meat?
Well, we had some deer meat, but we had more bear meat.
Okay, I got it. Got it.
So we started eating the bear meat, and then we're like, oh, burritos. They're awesome.
Burritos.
Like, breakfast burritos. And then like barbecue.
Oh, I'll be damn, I never had good bear meat. But I haven't eaten much. I had it's like anything. You have a few and you don't like it, and then you like, no.
Yeah. The key thing is to get the fat off the meat as soon as possible, that fat layer that they have. Because that's what starts to rancid. And
that's what has a smell.
The smell.
And that's what has a smell.
I'm not even going to ask where you got it.
Yeah, it's probably best not.
I'm not going to ask.
Yeah. We talked about this when we were on the show in 2019.
I think we did too.
Because it was right after it happened. It was like my best day ever. I should just quit after that day. Like I should never hunt again. I shot a buck in the morning, then a bear in the afternoon.
Damn.
All on public land, all with a bow.
I'll be damned.
So
that is a hell of a day.
He was so pissed off because he had to help me drag everything out.
Right, the partner's the worst on that day.
I help you with a buck in the morning now.
And he's all fired up.
Well, it was funny because I cut myself, and he cut me skinning out the buck, and we were with JT, and they were both saying like, "Oh, you need to go to the emergency room." I'm like, "You guys
not
are
today.
like, not today." It's like, they're like, "Well, let's go get super
glue.
glue."
The scar on it.
So let's go get the super glue. So like we get super glue, and then I told him, I was like, "Hey, I just shot that buck. You might as well hunt over my tree stand, and it's like bear's bound to come in, right?" He's like, "Yeah, I'll trade you. You go hunt my tree stand."
I like it.
So we traded.
And it came to your tree stand.
It came to my tree stand.
So it was just random luck. This bear comes by me, and so I look over, and we had no way to shoot that way, right?
Right.
And we weren't even, because we were planning on shooting this way. The bear comes in this way. I see the bear, and I range it, and I'm like, 40 yards, and it jumps up on this dead cedar tree that was like 5 foot in diameter.
What do you use to range it?
a rangefinder.
Oh, okay.
And then he walks down the tree.
New school shit.
And then all of a
new school.
sudden, he stops and he stands up and he smells me and he turns around and comes back. So like the wind's coming in my face. He came this way. So once he got on that tree that was angled, once he got downwind of me, he smelled me and turned around and came back. And I was like, well,
He's asking for it.
like I got to find a way to shoot. And I was looking for a window. The only way I could find a window, there was one, but it was about this big around, and I had to get down on one knee. I've never shot my bow off of one knee. I don't really practice that because I've always just stood and shot, right?
Now you know. See?
And so then I got down.
Experience.
I got down on one knee, and then I drew, and I was beaded right in the middle of that window, and he was coming on that tree right to that window, and I yelled at him as loud as I could at 40 yards. He didn't even flinch. So right when his nose got into that window, I let it go, and he walked right into it.
Where'd you hit it?
Right behind the shoulder, and
perfect.
it went completely through him at a diagonal. That's how these bows are nowadays in the new broadheads. Went completely through him and stuck in a tree behind him.
God.
And then he took off running, and then I have one arrow left by myself. I text him, hey, my phone's about ready to die. I just shot a bear. Click, it dies. So now I got to go stock it with one arrow, no cell service. It actually was the most exciting half an hour of hunting because, like, I had to go find it, right? You know,
That's a good, yeah.
You know, deer, if it's laying down, you know, it's going to probably get up and run away, right?
Yeah.
If you only wounded it, but a bear, like, you just,
bear's a little different.
a little different, yeah. But anyway, I
Well,
think
awesome, man. Awesome to have you on the podcast. Hope
we have to do it
back.
again.
Thank you.
I think
I'm
we're
real honored.
You want to plug your social media so everybody can go check you out?
Yeah. If you want, Tahoe Todd at Instagram and Todd Offenbacher on Facebook. You know, I got some fun pictures and just keep it light and try to inspire a little bit.
Yeah,
you know,
one
we're all
thing
just trying to make things better.
One thing about Todd is he has a great sense of humor, and that's probably the thing that we love the most about him watching Tahoe today is because it's always a laugh.
Thanks. I really appreciate it. Yeah, I'm honored to be here. I love what you guys are doing, Team Whiskey. I've been rocking the hat. You'll see pictures on my Instagram.
So one more question. What's the likelihood of you purchasing a bow and starting to practice and coming out to the High Sierra archery shoot next year?
I know. It's I'd say it's over 50%. Like,
right,
you know, it's like when it's in your soul. It's, you know, like I said, that was my passion, and then it became the mountains. And there's
we'll send you out with some of our ambassadors, because our ambassadors, man. What I always say about Team Whiskey and our ambassadors.
What's a bow cost?
Depends on. I mean,
what do skis cost?
Exactly.
So you're typically looking at.
600.
If you're looking at a
1,000.
flagship, you're looking about 900 to 1,100.
And then
the bare
sight,
bow.
yeah.
Then you need a
I
sight.
might have to go with the long bow.
So you're probably looking at around 1,300 to 1,500.
That's something just for a bow. Isn't that crazy?
I mean, you can
technology.
You can get some.
Some guy left
some starter range.
Some guy
gear.
left a bow all decked out at the shoot overnight, and it was like the most expensive bow you could buy. It was like
where did he leave it? Up on the hill?
Yeah, he left it like just right there at the base. And we're like, oh, here's this Hoyt. What was it?
It was a new RX4.
RX4.
Oh my gosh!
And it was like $2,000+ worth of bow and sights.
He
and
got to drinking
stabilize.
some whiskey, and
he like
buddies.
comes in the next day and he's like, yeah, we went to the back of the car and my bow is missing. I was like, well, that's the beauty about the community of the bow archery community.
Yep.
And the best thing about our shoot, just before we wrap it up, is Homewood. How much they like it. The ski patrollers come up to us and they say, man, you know what? We really like your people. And I'm like, why? And they're like, because we don't have to worry about them.
We don't have to worry about rescuing them.
Yep. We don't have to worry about rescuing them.
They're going to take care of themselves.
They're going to take care of themselves.
We all need to be a little bit more like that. Take care of yourself. Take care of the people around you. Don't worry about everybody else. The bullshit that's going on that you see out there. Like, let's just take care of ourselves first, and then if you're taken care of, take care of those around you.
Yeah, definitely. Well, anyway, thanks a lot.
Yeah,
thanks for coming on, Todd. We'll definitely be seeing you in the future. Get you back on here.
Love it.
Thanks for listening to the Whiskey Chronicles presented by Team Whiskey.
Team Whiskey.
Yeah, and make sure you go follow Todd, Tahoe Todd.
Tahoe Todd on Instagram. Check him out.
All right,
guys.
Thanks a lot.